Okay, Chair, we're live. We can make a start.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the North Strategic Neighbourhood Forum. The forum is made up of elected members of the council. I am Councillor Bowerman, Chair of the North Strategic Neighbourhood Forum. This is a public meeting and is being webcast to the public. Members of the public watching the meeting can submit questions to the forum throughout the meeting using the form on the right or below the webcast, depending on your device. Only questions relating to items on the agenda will be accepted. You can find the agenda available to download underneath the webcast. When submitting your question, please leave your name and the agenda item or subject matter that your question relates to. At the end of each item, members of the forum will ask questions, followed by any questions that have been submitted from members of the public. Before we begin, could I please ask that everyone mutes their microphones when not speaking in order to reduce background noise and interference. Please can members ensure their video camera remains on for the duration of the meeting. Thank you. And we'll go on to the agenda now, if everyone's got the agenda in front of them. And our first item is apologies for absence. Do I have any apologies, Charlotte?
I've not received any, Chair.
Thank you very much. Second item, minutes. We've received the minutes of the North Strategic Neighbourhood Forum on the 30th of July, 24. Our next item is item 3, which is the enforcement update. And tonight I would like to welcome Bev Hursthouse, who's the Regulatory Services Manager, Environmental Services. Good evening, Bev.
Thanks, Chair. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello. So, Chair, I will start the presentation if that's okay, and then
lovely. Thank you, Emma.
I'll just share my my screen. Excuse me. And I'll make sure we get the slideshow from the beginning, excuse me. We are here to share with you the range of enforcement within operations and neighbourhoods, which covers both public protection and our work in community safety. We do work with our police colleagues in GMP, but within the local authority, we've got a range of enforcement powers which are available to us through legislation. And we just want to be able to share with you some of the work we've been doing in the last 18 months and also in this last calendar year, some of the results that we've had. I'm sorry, I can see Councillor Choksey has a question.
Well, thank you, Councillor Choksey. Go ahead.
No, it's not a question. Councillor Karim is trying to get into the meeting. He's unable to join. So please, can anyone contact the Councillor Karim and help him join the meeting?
Yes, Councillor, I'll contact him and help.
Thank you, Charlotte. Sorry about that, Emma. Go ahead.
Not at all. So tonight we'll provide you with some data in terms of the two major areas of enforcement in our service. Obviously, there is also planning enforcement, which we're not covering in this presentation. Just to give you a sort of outline, in the last 18 months, we really focused on enforcement within the neighbourhoods and have used the legislation available to us. We did a service redesign within neighbourhoods and took enforcement as a primary focus. And we also had the new enforcement coordination panel, which gave opportunities for members, cross-party members, to look at, scrutinise, look at our work, advise, and have an idea and be updated on current enforcement cases that we're taking forward and some of the results that we were getting within the service. So this is a sort of highlight report, but we have been updating members on quarterly meetings as part of the formal enforcement coordination panel. So Bev is going to talk a lot about the public protection, and then I will pick up the community safety area. Bev, if you'd like to.
Thank you, Bev.
Thanks, Emma. Okay, so you can see from the slides, I'm not going to read through them line by line, but what I just wanted to bring to your attention is the vast amount of work that public protection have been doing particularly over the last 12 months. So I will just go through them a little bit just to give you a bit of a brief overview of what some of that enforcement looks like. So it mentions there about food safety and food standards. That includes all of the hygiene inspections. So you'll know from going to a restaurant or going to dine out for the evening that you'll see that there's the green sticker in the window, giving you an indication of rating. Now that is done by environmental health officers. That's done by way of an unannounced inspection, and following that inspection, the business is left with a rating. That's then in the public domain for public to make a choice on where they choose to dine, subject to obviously the hygiene conditions in that premises. Throughout the course of the time, we do unfortunately come across some problematic businesses, which we do have to work more closely with. And that sometimes does result in issuing improvement notices, or it could be a voluntary closure or closure order. So by way of them making sure that they're serving the public fairly and the public is not at risk, we do have enforcement options that we do have to take when carrying out these inspections. Another area of mine is trading standards. I'll move on to that a little bit later on. We'll talk about the recent seizure, but some of that obviously is, doorstep crime. We're talking about counterfeit. We're also talking about food on farm, wide range of inspections that goes on with both environmental health and trading standards. So we have had quite a lot of prosecutions go through this year. Subject obviously to the delays in the court system at the moment, but we have had some prosecutions, some successful prosecutions, and a real good mixed bag. I'm going to talk a little bit about the waste enforcement. So obviously that's talking about the prosecutions that's going ahead this year, some that's gone on, and some of the work that the team there have been doing. There's some, obviously parking is quite a high topic as well, so there's some stats on there for you for PCNs that have been served and bus lane PCNs. There's some statistics that have been provided there for you. Housing standards for service requests. We've done the homes for the Ukraine inspections, and we've done the house of multiple occupancy inspections as well, and you've got some figures on there. So if we can move to the next slide, Emma, please. Okay, thank you. So this talks a little bit about some of the highlights for enforcement, particularly around across all of the service. This slide mentions some of the waste prosecutions, highly publicised, so you may have read some of these in the papers. And this three that really stand out that have been very, successful prosecutions in the fly tipping world has been Leon's removal service. That one was advertising removal of waste on social media. A really good prosecution there. It was waste that was found to be dumped in Ardenshire. And then two further ones that are relevant to the north here in the Ashton area, Claire Butler and Marie Fairhurst, both found to be dumping waste, and really good successful prosecutions there. I have got the newspaper article if anybody wishes to see that, if you haven't seen that already. They've been busy with some licensing panel hearings as well. One of the ones that was also very highly publicised was the Crown Point Tavern, following on from an incident that took place there, and that was resulted in the licence being revoked. And then decades, there was some conditions that was reduced. So some conditions that was amended to their licence, such as the hours of operating was reduced as well. Lots of days of action, which you can see that have been proven really, really successful. The ones there are showing the ones that were coming up. This targets obviously some of the hotspots area. We have got the next one planned for the 13th of November in Droylsden, and then moving over to the Ashton side on the 11th of December. and the 15th of January, we've got the Stalybridge one. So there is many days of actions coming up that you may already be aware of. And that follows on from numbers of reports that are being received, and obviously the hotspot areas. So can move on from that one, Emma. So again, this is something else that was heavily publicised, the Operation Avro, where we team up with GMP and other organisations. Lots of activity took place on this day, lots of really good results. But the one that I'm going to speak about quite passionately really is the seizure that took place at an Ashton self-store unit. This followed on from concerns raised by members of the public and also referrals to GMP. So obviously people do quite care about this issue. It is quite prevalent that we do take some action on there. And what you see in the pictures there on the slides is some of the haul that we seized. There was obviously quite a big consignment that we had to take, ranging from the stock that you see here, from perfumes, handbags, trainers, clothing. Also in there was illicit tobacco. There was counterfeit vapes, which are, you know, that they are quite dangerous. So there was a lot of seized stock from this. This is an ongoing investigation and ongoing towards the legal systems. But what I can say is obviously all of this stock now has been seized and removed from the markets. Now this followed on from obviously very again highly publicised the issues that we faced in Cheetah Mill. What we was starting to see is obviously the trickle feed from, you know, the let's call it the clear out from Cheetah Mill. We were starting to see then it was impacting on some of the businesses within Tameside. So we had to find the big ones really. We had to find the ones that were storing, you know, the biggest stock. So like I say, that is ongoing. It is one that we are currently going through the legal systems with. What will happen is that a forfeiture order will be applied for, so all of that stock will be seized. We have used a company for storage of this that do also look at putting some of this back into reuse where possible. So we are currently working with the trademark holders to see if we can reuse some of this where people, you know, homeless charities and other charitable organisations may benefit. So I don't want to sort of leave you with a disillusion that it'll just all end up in landfill. Where it can be repurposed, it will be. Such as the vapes, obviously you were continuously seizing a large amount of vapes, which is a problem for, you know, our youngster population. And we've also got problems with you know, fires surrounding vapes and illicit vape products. We've also now sourced a company that are reusing that as well, so we're not sort of removing one problem and putting it into a landfill issue. So I move on from this slide, Emma, if that's okay. So this takes you on to fly tipping. Obviously, there's been a huge amount of issues with in relation to fly tipping, but you know, credit to the team, they're doing so much work to, you know, to try and combat some of these issues that we're facing. As we mentioned before, some of the successful prosecutions, and you'll see from the stats further down the line that you can see the increase in enforcement action that has been taken, you know, in the work that's been involved with the teams there to try and combat this and bring to justice, obviously, any person that's found responsible for dumping it. Just gives you a little bit of an idea there about who's responsible for removing the waste, because there's always a little bit of confusion in the public eye, unfortunately, that the council are always going to be responsible for removing all waste, but you know, sometimes it is dumped on private land and the landowner unfortunately is responsible from that, and we may need to serve staff to enforce that removal. So we can move on from that slide, Emma. It's taken, yeah, there you go. Okay, so the stats there, it does show some of the work that's been going on. This takes us back to obviously 2020, and you can see there a number of fixed penalty notices that have been issued. We are serving the most FPNs, and I understand that the FPNs that are being served at the moment are predominantly in the Erst area and the St Michael's area. Quite a lot, like I say, quite a lot of work going on there, but we have got hotspots, as you'll all be aware about, but the highest number of FPNs I am informed is in the Ashton area. So if we can move on from there, obviously I don't want to read all the numbers there, they're all available to you. So how are we tackling the problem? This again has been really highly publicised. So we've got this campaign working with the Our Streets campaign. We are starting to see the introduction of some CCTV cameras. We're trialling that at the moment. We've mentioned earlier about the days of action. We are targeting the hotspots, obviously all of the areas that are being brought to our attention, and we're looking at obviously targeting those as much as we can. And we have made it very much easier for somebody to report fly tipping as well. You know, system has been introduced to make it so people can report their concerns of fly tipping. And then obviously because of the increased publicity and the communication highlighting that, then, you know, we've been able to catch some of the culprits and take them through the court system, as we've mentioned before. Thanks, Emma.
So I'm going to take over now. So as part of our enforcement powers, we have antisocial behaviour powers, and there are sort of two levels within society, those which the local authority can pursue. They tend to be the lower level antisocial behaviour offences, and they can be disputes between neighbours. There can be issues of noise and disturbance, but then those antisocial behaviour activities can also be within the criminal space, and then our colleagues within the Greater Manchester Police take over. We do work with Greater Manchester Police, and ideally we should be resolving issues within our own within the community and not going forward for prosecution. But if we have to, then I'm afraid we do that in order to ensure a happy neighbourhoods. But these are the results for Ashton and the North area, and you can see that predominantly we are resolving our cases, and that's a good thing. But in some cases, we have to pursue a case for prosecution, and that's done with the community safety team, and there are specialist enforcers within that team. One of the great activities that we've had in the last year and is the Resilient Community Fund. We've been really thrilled with the community engagement and the opportunity for us to really support the excellent volunteers that we have within the community. We had 8 successful voluntary community groups who applied for funding, and we were utterly thrilled with the application process. This is funding available to us from the Deputy Police Crime Commissioner, and it's a real opportunity for us to celebrate and to support community groups, volunteers doing incredible work right across the North area. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate and support them. And I think when we've done all the neighbourhood forums in the last 2 weeks, this has been a real area where I think it's been wonderful to see members and community members together, focusing on the things that are important to the community. So we're thrilled with that. We wanted to highlight the CCTV service as part of this presentation. They really do, they are sort of unsung heroes of our enforcement world. They do a huge amount of work. Their expertise and their eagle eye work is incredible. They're able to really spot things that are happening in the community, and they have a two-way radio connection with the police service and are able to highlight someone perhaps in danger or a crime happening. And in 2022, they did get a chief superintendent commendation for their work. And they've also been incredibly important to things like ASB and fly tipping prosecutions. So they do incredible work, and we're really proud of their ability to add to the team and provide excellent intelligence. So these are the contact email addresses where we would encourage members of the public and members to put specific referrals in. We do pick up these emails, and not also worth mentioning the Tell Tameside app, where we pick up fly tipping reports as well, and that really helps us. With an uploaded photograph, you can, and if you do it actually where you're stood when you take a photograph, that gives us a location and really helps us to pinpoint the activity. And you'll also see whether someone else has reported that in that area. So I'm just happy to take any questions, and I'll just stop sharing this now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma and Bev. It's very interesting that. From my personal point, I'd like to say thank you to the Resilient Communities Fund. It was an excellent evening that evening, and some very worthwhile groups were awarded funding. So can't do any better than that. It's wonderful. As regards the fly tipping areas, and the huge remit, haven't you? So the fly tipping loan is just horrendous. We have one in Booth Street, Fleet Street in Ashton, where I'm emailing every single week to get stuff moved. There's no cameras or anything, and local residents are to blame, some of them, but then you've got people dumping in that area as well, because it's hidden from Stamford Street type thing. Nobody can see them. So I just wondered if they did manage to have any remote cameras, can we sort of put forward addresses which we know are constantly, it must cost our council a fortune to come along every week to remove this stuff, you know. And I have been there myself on the day of action and seen our team moving it, and it was just horrendous what they had to move. It was just awful.
So we did trial,
well done to them.
Yeah, we did trial mobile CCTV cameras, and we're going through a procurement process to add to that number. There are different types, and what we've discovered through the pilot process is we need different types for different locations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
The pilot area that we did was in Ashton, and the priority is done on the number of incidents, the cost to the council, as it were. So we will be focusing areas where we've got high costs, high turnover, but obviously the mobile CCTV gives us flexibility when we've got a particular issue. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Thank you. I've got a couple of hands up, Councillor Andrew McLaren and Councillor Bill Fairfowl. So if you want to go first, Andrew, and then we'll take Councillor Fairfowl afterwards.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that. And I just first of all like to endorse all the hard work, Emma, that you and your team have done with Mike and all the rest of them. It has shown results without a doubt, and for that you should be commended, because it's been shown to improve. The point I would make is a simple one. This is not really a question for anyone, it's just a statement. I've been asked to do a piece of work on HMOs and the rest of it, and the reason why I bring that up is I think Emma and her team can only do so much. And in football terms, what Emma's doing is tactics, and what we need really is a wider strategy and a game plan in the longer term. And the statement I'd really like to make is this, that I'm pulling together some data, and it's dangerous to conflate data too early until it's been thoroughly tested. But over 40% of the HMOs in the whole of Tameside are contained within the 3 wards of Ashton. And the numbers of privately rented houses of lower values, again, is significantly located around the Ashton wards. And my point is a simple one, that it's Andy Burnham said about the right to buy on council houses. If you don't stop people having the ability to right to buy, all you're doing is the water's been poured into the bath and it's going out of the plug. And we've got to start to I think strategically look at long-term solutions to this. And I'm not stigmatizing people who live in HMOs, and I'm not stigmatizing people who live in privately rented houses. They're good people, and the majority, I'm sure, are fantastic and all the rest of it. But what I am saying is there's such a churn and there's such a turnover in communities because of this, that I think it would be foolish to ignore it. And so really, until I've finished this paper and I've kind of produced it and people can look at it and agree with it or disagree with it, I think there's a strategic point here that we need to embrace with the data, and we need to be data led, because otherwise all the good work that Emma's doing and the team will just have to carry on. And in fact, it might be exacerbated, because as soon as the CCTV cameras go away and as soon as then it all starts to come back again. So, I mean, that's really the point I just wanted to make, is to back up what Emma's doing in the team is fantastic. But I do think that there's a long-term piece of work here and a big piece of policy that needs to be rolled out over the next 2 to 3 years that might not produce results in that time. But I think given time, that will be a more permanent and long-term solution.
Did you want to comment, Emma or Bev?
And no, simply to say that I will pass the thanks on to the team, Councillor McCann, and they will appreciate that. I absolutely think there is a strategic view that we need, and there's always engagement and enforcement, isn't there? And there is a need for us to support communities and to look at the density, I think, as you point out, of housing is particular in the Ashton area, but we've also got a very vibrant community there. So it's a combination, we know, of engagement and education and enforcement, but then availability of really great places to live, which I think that's our ambition, isn't it? So thank you for that, and we really will look forward to seeing what you find.
Yeah, thank you, Emma.
Interesting to hear that he thinks there's only 3 Ashton wards. He did say 3 Ashton wards.
I think there's 4, isn't there?
Well, does he know that?
I stand like corrected, and there's 4, but you take my point. They're all concentrated within the Ashton wards.
Yeah, thank you. I've got Councillor Fairford, then Councillor Kareem, and then Councillor Patel. So if you want to go ahead, please, Councillor Fairford.
Thanks, Joyce. And yeah, just another thanks to the team, Emma, because you know how much we appreciate that. But it's not a nice job for them to come and clean all this fly tipping up, and it must be it's horrible. And I think I think all credit, and again, just reinforce those thanks that Councillor McLaren just said as well. I also think it's a shame actually that we've. I'm just looking. I can't see who's actually here. I don't think. Councillor Cowan here or Costello? I can't remember. You read something. You read something at full council last week, was it? And I think it's really important as elected representatives that we actually give the public this information that you've actually given us tonight, Emma, because this is actually the correct way to go about things, not trying to almost invent our own processes, because I think in certain circumstances that actually makes matters even worse, because the public have an expectation that something could be picked up right outside the door in the following day. Well, it's just simply not going to happen, is it? So I think as elected representatives, I think this information that you've actually, I mean, obviously, I think the people on the call that I can see tonight, I would be responsible enough to actually confirm this anyway. But I think it's really just a reminder. I think actually the correct process is for how we actually report this fly tipping in. I also want to thank you for the litter hubs idea. I'm not going to mention this tonight, but I'm really quite enthused about it to try and get the community involved. And 1 or 2 more ideas that are coming through, like the lady who goes for a walk and she wants to take a litter picker. Where does she put the rubbish? Is there an armband that we can give her, or a little sticker or something? We can talk a bit more in depth about that again. But there's lots of people that are walking in Tameside, and we're more than happy to keep their sort of little patch tidy, and that includes some of the green spaces that we've got surrounding the town. So again, well done on the litter hubs. I think they've been quite good. Excellent initiative. And finally, from me, is and I know I keep saying it, and I don't know what else we can do, but I'd love to have more publicity around the prosecutions. I really would, because it does send a message home, and people are quite surprised when we say, "Oh, so, we've actually prosecuted over 100 people in the last 12 months, whatever." And they thought, "Have you?" So yeah, we are doing our best. When it's not, we're just leaving it. So that's it. I don't think there's anything for you to take away there. But sorry to actually come back to me with, but a couple of things just to take away. Thanks.
Yeah, no, appreciate that, Councillor Fairfax. I'll pass the Litter Hub idea, because the Litter Hubs, I'm sorry, I didn't mention, they have been absolutely fantastic, I have to say.
Yeah.
Such enthusiasm, and I appreciate you mentioned. I'll mention that to the team, but I'll pick that up idea about an individual opportunity, because we're the council. We just really are grateful for the volunteers, aren't we? Because they're making a massive difference. And but I will pick that up, work with Nick's team, and as an idea, Councillor Fairfax, I think that's a really good one that we'll pick up for us. And in terms of prosecutions, yeah, I think we are going to try and push out more and more. We had I think, was it on the 9th, we were in Hyde, and we did 4 fixed penalty notices just on that day of action. So people, we're trying to also just be aware. What I will say is about, these rogue traders. If you are giving your waste to a rogue trader who's not, who hasn't been registered, then unfortunately you will get prosecuted, because your waste has been perhaps dumped by someone, and that is such a shame. So we are trying to really push out. Please be very sure and check your trade on the website, and that person who is able to remove rubbish is actually registered, and they as a legitimate tradesperson to do that. So your waste will go to a legitimate place, because what you don't want is somebody who, is struggling financially, then to be burdened with a prosecution. But you have to, as an individual, check that person's legitimate. Otherwise, I'm afraid to say that will be really difficult. And we are finding sometimes people haven't been made aware that these people are dumping waste, on countryside land, which is such a shame. So always check a trade. I know Bev would say that from a trading standards point of view.
I think a lot of companies are showing the certificate now, the notification that they have, that they're legitimate and they are doing it legally, So I've got Councillor Karim, followed by Councillor Patel, and then Councillor Chotsky. So if you can go ahead then, please, Councillor Karim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Emma. Thank you very much. My hotspot in Hascross, all 3 spots are in Hascross, Rowley Street and Surrey Street. Rowley Street is like Jigsaw's resident. When they put it outside the grill, it comes to in our pavement, and they put it in there inside the grill, then it is the Jigsaw's. Jigsaw is not clearing regularly. So I try to inform Ian Pasco or them always, and they do help me. And for that reason, Rowley Street and Surrey Street is a little bit tackled. We managed to do that, but still doing. Like last week, our staff cleared it. The same night, someone is dumping, and I was rounding on the area. So what we can do, we can try again. But my main thing is Springfield Street. That's the private land, lots of bricks there. I already spoke to Mike Robinson. He said already penalty to someone, and he's got like £2,000, and he's not paying that. But my point is, for this reason, the other residents, they are suffering. They are always ringing me. They are sending me the pictures on the Hascross main part, where the Springfield Street, and which is the private land. What we can do on this part, please? Can you tell me something and give some advice? Because there are lots of bricks, and I think one of the social media, they put the rat's picture on the social media, that
Yes.
that rat is on the window, and it's not nice for me when I see that. Thank you, Emma.
So I think when there is a environmental health issue, and I'm not going to presume because we have a professional here, we can take action. And but what I will say is that when it's private land, we do pressure the private landowner to remove the fly tipping, which is, and we must pursue that because that's the right way forward. But when it gets to a circumstance when we cross over into environmental health issue, then we can also take action. Bev, do you want to jump in on that? Because I'm not going to presume to stray into your land.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think just to be really, really clear that if it does take place in a private residential house, we've got the housing team that will look at some enforcement for the garden waste, any garden waste that's been dumped by the owner occupier. Business waste, obviously, they've got a duty of care to make sure that they're legally getting rid of their waste. And obviously keeping their areas clean. So there is enforcement options available to us in terms of legal notices. Obviously, if they fail then to comply with the legal notice, that then would step it up to, taking it through the court system. So we do very often have to serve improvement notices, and that usually, hopefully, will resolve the issue. It can obviously businesses, it can impact on rating, it can impact obviously on reputation. So it depends on obviously where the issue is, but there is enforcement options available to us that we will use.
Thank you, Bev.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Karim. Councillor Patel.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I can see there's some great work going on. I just wanted to go back to Councillor Bowerman's point about hotspots and repeat picking up of waste. We've got a hotspot on Newmarket Road, which is a crossroad to Oldham Road and Wilshaw Lane, and it's very sort of heavily populated with traffic and lots of pedestrians. So it is a bit of an eyesore really for anyone passing by, and there's lots of people passing by. I've repeatedly reported it, and it's been ongoing for years. We've talked to residents. We've made a number of actions, and I know there was some sort of prosecution that took place a couple of years ago. I just wondered how we could, maybe going forward, how we can tackle a situation like this. Somebody somewhere must know who is putting additional bags out there. I've even got the business to paint the side of it to make it look a little bit nicer, but even that's been sort of destroyed a little bit now with the bags being there and additional waste. Is there something that we can maybe perhaps look at going forward to try and tackle this?
What I will say is that if any resident has got any evidence, photographic evidence, or we can pursue those people. And as you say, there must be people who see that in the local area. When we have our mobile cameras, as I say, we will be focusing on the areas that we're having to do repeat visits to, and because those cost us the most. So it's very, very simple. The areas where it's costing me to tip off the waste, I will be wanting to, get rid of those. And it's such a shame because we're very proud of our borough, aren't we? And we have these areas where people just don't care about how it looks. And it's a very small minority, but it does have every time there's a cost to us, it's money that's not going on nice, joyful things, which the people could do. So, I absolutely will have a look at that, Councillor Patel,
Thank you.
Do say to the officers, won't you, about where the persistent places are. Sometimes we will share in the enforcement coordination panel where our top 10 places are. Obviously, and those are the high cost areas. That's just what it is, I'm afraid to say. But we will try and help you. But as always, if there are residents that know, they can pass that information on to us, and we can use the evidence to help us prosecute, and then hopefully that would deter people from because the fines are there, and then if fines aren't paid, then I'm afraid that it goes on to further more serious prosecution, and bailiffs get involved, etc. So it's important that we continue to pursue those prosecutions. Even when fines aren't paid, we will pursue them, in some cases through to court.
Yeah. So just going back to litter, we're quite fortunate that we've got Waterloo Action that do litter picks every Saturday morning, which is fantastic. So generally, Waterloo's quite tidy. I just wondered if, would there be a possibility to maybe do a sort of publicity campaign about littering, trying to really get the message across to schools, the wider public, some sort of communication. And I take on board the point that Councillor Fairfellow made about, the success stories. I think that really sort of hits hard as well. I just think, if we keep giving out some sort of consistent messaging, that might help, even if it helps slightly.
Yeah, no, totally
difference.
agree. Yeah, I'll pick that up. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Councillor Choksky, I think you was next.
Thank you, Chair. And like other councillors, I want to come on board, congratulating the enforcement team for doing fantastic work. And we can see that, some positive work has been done, and in particular to Waterloo as well, like Sangeeta just mentioned. I mean, we have, luckily, we have Waterloo Action who has done fantastic work, and I precisely know the date when we started that particular group, and they've been, doing fantastic work with the leadership of Dave as well. And just particularly on the New Market Road, I'm aware there is a CCTV camera on the junction, but unfortunately it is on the angle which doesn't capture the particular activity from the back. So and I think, potentially we may need to consider deploying a mobile camera on that particular location. And there have been some positive work in Waterloo in terms of the Harvard Street, and all three councillors were getting reports on a regular basis. But I think with the engagement with the public and social media engagement, I think we started receiving more information in terms of the intelligence, in terms of the who's doing it, and people are coming forward with the evidence. So I think it's more repetitive, boring task that everybody has to do it. And thankfully, council and the other partners, Jigsaw, and all work collectively. I'm not seeing, further reports. So I'm assuming that that has been tackled. But one particular point, I'm not sure whether other wards are being affected. The fly tipping in water streams, and Waterloo has a number of water streams, and I'm gratefully one of the water stream was cleared. There was years worth of near the Richmond Street, a couple of year back, but in particular we have a major issue with the stream near Wilshaw Lane, and that has experienced the water stream, but understandably, due to water levels, due to weather condition, it's always not easy to pull out or clear it. I think we may need to plan something on that, and I'm not sure how we can move forward. and it is important for us to, ensure that the water stream are maintained and looked after. And some more, obviously the things are building up, as you leave it on, and it attracts more of the debris on a day-to-day basis. So I think I like to see the more work is being undertaken in terms of the managing water streams, and some kind of, I think, we always talk about fly tipping at some other locations, but I think water streams are being discarded. So I would like to see some publicity, like Singita mentioned, that some publicity needs to be there and some action plan needs to be there to maintain our water streams. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Chokska. Any more questions or comments, anyone? I can't see any more hands up anywhere. But just want to say thank you to Bev and Emma for their input tonight. It's great to see how much work is going on. I mean, the huge area to see to, Bev. So Flatim is just sort of one area, and we know what sort of trouble that causes. So thank you tonight for that. Any more questions or comments before I close the meeting? Because I think that was very interesting tonight, so thank you everyone for your input. The date of the next meeting is going to be in the new year, so it's the 28th of January 2025. Thank you everyone for this evening's comments and questions, and thank you to Charlotte for facilitating the meeting, and to our super guests tonight, Bevan, Emma.